Attention, all you fishes in the sea. Welcome to the Fisch Bowl with Sam Fish.
I'm happy to just be in the room or on the list, even though if I'm down at 400,952 of all the greatest movies ever made, if I've cracked 1,000,000, we're happy. But it really is an honor for me as a fan. I always like to say I flash back to the 14-year-old kid or whatever age I was growing up in Indiana, looking at movie posters on the wall and going to the theaters when something would come out and I could afford the matinee ticket or trying to sneak in and just seeing some of those great movies. And it's like, and hey, I wound up in Hollywood somehow. And, I'm not at the top. I'm somewhere in the middle or buried near the bottom. It doesn't matter. I've got to work with amazing people. Like you say, Bill Moseley was in the first movie I was ever in on set, Crash and Burn. Charlie Band directed. And as I honestly, I don't think I've even worked with Bill since then, but it was such a positive experience. And just like, I'm on a movie set and I'm on a kind of a horror sci-fi movie set. And who's this guy Moseley, who's just like playing a crazy cyborg or something. And it's just like, hey, that guy's going to go somewhere. And he did, of course, so many great parts and everything. So, and again, people that I've got a chance to work with and become friends with quite a few of them. And it's been an honor, honestly. So to be able to be part of it. And I still take it that way every single day.
I can believe it. Just through talking with you, it's been a blast. One last film I wanted to talk. Well, two that I wanted to bring up that you worked on. There was a convention I covered a few years back. It just got recently posted. Was the Living Dead weekend, and here in Pittsburgh to honor George Romero and his legacy in Pittsburgh, with it being not just the Steelers, Penguins, Pirates capital, but the zombie capital.
The flesh-eating ghoul now.
Right.
Flesh-eating ghoul. I like
but I had the chance to interview. I've been following this because my favorite actors are not really I love movie stars, but I think I gravitate more towards character actors. And Don Harvey was at that convention. I had a chance to interview him, and I know you got to work as, I believe, a driver, some sort of thing with Taken and Taken 3.
I was the transportation coordinator or captain or coordinator near the top of the department on 1, 2, and 3, the features, the LA and the American legs of those. Anyway, they shot some of them back in various other countries, but yeah.
Well, I just want to say Dawn and Taken in general, obviously totally redefining Liam Neeson's career from being a serious dramatic actor to a full-blown action star.
And a full-blown, like you say, a full-blown actor, super, super nice guy. Absolute pleasure to work with him. Obviously an old school pro in so many ways. But, and the first movie, when in Hollywood, sometimes you get hired and it's a job and you don't know what you're getting into. And I was always famously saying, I hate reading the script because it's going to be a great script and I'm excited to work on it and it may not turn out that good, or it's a terrible script and you don't want to work on it, but those are the ones that generally turn out good. But this was a great script. Great cast, great talent, everyone across the board, and then it's Liam Neeson, and like you say, every other actor in it too was just phenomenal, and it was old school filmmaking. It wasn't the explosion on page one and open with bang bang bang. It's like take 20 minutes to slowly get to know everyone, and the characters are even more like. And I'm so into that old school OG vibe on stuff like that. I think back to Sorcerer we're talking about. I think it's almost an hour into the movie before they ever get to the truck that the movie's named after. Right. Same things. And A Deer Hunter, another great Pennsylvania movie there. Yeah. Like how long is it before we get? There's not an action film by any stretch, but it's the character and the setup and all that. So anyway, so many stories from that, and for it to have become a global phenomenon and been part of it. And I was saying to somebody else the other day, obviously people expected it to be a success, but I don't think anyone expected it to become an iconic global movie like it was. We all thought it was going to be good. You could tell on the set it was going to be good, and we all did our best. And then suddenly I remember there was an email chain among people going around. It's like, it's hit $100 million. Like what? Like what? Everyone's like, wait, what? This is like the number one movie. I don't remember if was actually the number one, but I think it was. And again, it was, it wasn't like we spent $100 million on it. It was very much an independent film, and all of them. I think Taken 3 became. I think the budget was much larger on that. It was much more
Yes,
of an action
that
film.
one. I was gonna
When,
say like the I could tell from much like in Hollywood, the first one, like even going back to the first John Wick because they've been playing the first three on HBO Max, whatever, and it's been what like a decade since they've made John Wick. They've gone the four. They have the ballerina spinoff, and it's like you kind of forget, how just like simple the first movie is.
yeah, yeah,
Before you get, the Hollywood is like we have a hit, give them more money, and then the second one is bigger, that does well. But now we got to give them a lot more money to up the ante, and it becomes that, how do we make it bigger,
big,
better, kill
yeah.
more people,
I'm
or
such a giant
how do you kill
fan.
people,
Yeah, I'm such a giant fan of that series, and it's also, it's kind of a testament to letting, even though everyone involved are obviously professionals, from Keanu to everybody doing it, but they're also fans. They're
Right,
movie fans. And so it was
right,
basically fans, professional fans making a movie for other fans. And it just bleeds off the screen. And like you said, it's so simple. And yes, you can get hung up on like the highest body count ever and the great lines and the great moments and all those things. But at the end of the day, it's almost like the biggest, best fan fiction ever of something. It's just like these guys, they love the same movies we do. And they finally get the chance to just pull off the stops and get in front and
right.
behind the camera and just go mental and have fun. And I love it. And again, old school. That's old school filmmaking. Like
Exactly. And it's like seeing like actually giving a chance for stunt men to shine,
to shine. Yeah, hard.
and not just shine, but like because of John Wick, now you have what's his name? There's two of them that were in the first one. There's Tate Fletcher, who's the big one with the beard that he kills, and who's been in how many movies, and now he has like his own character that I believe was on The Boys. That he's gotten so big and with his look and everything, and then the other is Daniel. Is it Bernhard or something? He has a very signature look also. And speaking of awesome B-grade movies, and this just came out earlier this year, a couple months ago, the remake of a reboot remake, I don't know how you want to look at it, of Death Stalker.
Well, I haven't
Um,
seen, which I haven't seen. So
I highly recommend it. It's
making the
this
note.
this guy, the writer director. His name is Steven Kaczynski. It might be Kaczynski. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name, but uh,
Smith.
this guy, like, he's I believe around like my age, late 30s, maybe early 40s. I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but within that like we, a late 80s, mid 80s, like kid who grew up with watching, all the stuff that, we're fans of. I'm huge fans of growing up, and he's made some like every film he's made has been just like encompassing everything that was great about the 80s style and everything. And he doesn't, incorporate any like political or social like subtext. It's all just, how movies used to be, with like just making a fun, goofy, campy, horror sci-fi film. And his Death Stalker, and he's also a makeup effects artist, so he owns his own company, and they does all the effects for his own movies. And the first movie that I remember he did on the topic of Lovecraft, it wasn't a Lovecraft adaptation, but it was basically like From Beyond and a few other ones like combined, and it was called The Void. And great, great movie. Wild effects, such in the vein of, Stuart Gordon, Brian Usna, Lovecraft, with like some Prince of Darkness kind of
Right.
thrown in there.
Another great film.
And then some of his more recent ones before, and I believe he also did what technically takes place in the original Leprechaun universe, just not with Warwick Davis. He did, I believe, Leprechaun Returns for Sci-Fi, which was actually pretty enjoyable. It was probably the first Leprechaun, even though Warwick wasn't the Leprechaun. It was very, very enjoyable, and you can tell he's like grew up watching the great, plethora of horror films, because there's a lot of scenes that you can tell he was watching from, taken from certain films from the 80s. And some of the two films he did before Deathstalker, which is really like his first, I would say, something with somewhat of a bigger budget, because it's like fantasy sword and sorcery type stuff, was one was called, and I love the promotion for it, PG, aka Psycho Gorman. And this movie was just such fun. It's like, I mean, it's like a sci-fi. I mean, I wouldn't even throw horror in there. I'd say it's a sci-fi comedy, like black comedy, with like horror effects, sci-fi effects. But
Sounds
it's
like
like it's
sounds like he's watching Tokyo Gore Police or Itchy the
Yeah,
Killer or
that
something like that.
there's also a
Those
lot of Power
references.
Rangers, a
Yeah.
lot of Power Rangers in there. And then the last one he did after that, which I honestly think Psycho Gorman and this one, Frankie Frico, are like my two favorite films he's done,
I had
because
lunch with him the other day.
Frankie Frico is like Ghoulies. It's these little puppet like demon things, and like everything about it is so goofy, and you just feel it's thrown into the world, and what he does on, a budget with like sets and green screens and stuff, like with the puppets. It's very, very well done. And then like to go from that to rebooting Deathstalker was pretty cool. And Daniel, I forget if Bernhard, whatever his last name is, plays the new Deathstalker. Now, I will say, for people who have not seen the film and are familiar with the 80s franchise, if you're expecting TNA, it is not in this movie. But if you want to see like just a fun sword and sorcery movie with a lot of good practical effects, like in the vein of the 80s, you will enjoy it. That's my take on it. I personally enjoyed it. I feel like, the 80s, we didn't have the internet and smartphones where nudity and pornography is like shoved in our faces, and HBO and these premium channels with, how it's shoved in our faces at this point. Like HBO almost can't have a show without having someone get naked, whether it's a guy or a girl or both, you know. So I'm a
We had
little like,
we had Skinamax back then though, so
right,
but
right. I
which is a
remember
little
that,
more
and,
of
it's funny because on that, like, Skinamax has totally gone away from that image. And then now I think the only one that you can still watch adult content like that on is Showtime, and MGM Plus has some
a
Skinamax S type
well,
stuff.
it's everywhere. Like we were saying earlier, though, with writing and with effects and everything too, leaving some things to the imagination. It kind of engages your brain. But there was that glorious time in the '80s in particular, but also into the '90s of just like it's like the boob channel. Like, good grief!
Right,
Like
right,
what?
right,
It's
right.
like it was crazy, and that was part of the fun of it too, whether it's respectful or disrespectful. But so many things. I mean, how many women's prison movies were there? I think one of my first movies that I worked on was Bikini Beach Babes from Beyond Infinity. I'm like, how can you not want to watch that? I'm sorry,
Right,
it just
right, right, right. And I think there was something on Encore the other day that was called Lesbian Vampire Hunters. who wouldn't want to watch that?
Like, who wouldn't? Like, it's irrelevant. I mean, wait, is that good grammar? Are they hunting lesbian vampires, or are the vampire hunters lesbians? I guess I have to watch to find out.
Right,
maybe it's both.
Right, I guess it's what's come to be called a Snakes on a Plane title. Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out for research and grammatical purposes. So, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm giving away too much, but my dad. This is one for the guys who are listening. If you have old horny dads like my dad, who's a bit of a pervert in a good way,
Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad. They left an impression on me. I'm a horny little, pervert in the right kind of way too. Apparently you can access adult movies on Paramount Plus if you have Showtime. I found this out through accidentally scrolling and leave it to my dad. He's like, I can't get it up anymore anyways, so I just want to watch it.
Well, I've heard, you might want to let him know. I've heard that they have those type of movies on the internet somewhere too. It's a thing. Apparently, there's you got to really search for it hard, but apparently there's websites that have that.
Yeah, but
never stumbled across it myself, but friends have told me that it's out there somewhere. So
I know, but apparently it's on there if you have the Showtime version. So for all you youngsters out there,
the viewership just goes up. Much more subscribers there all of a sudden.
All the women are like, he's a pig. He's giving the wrong information out there. All the guys are going. They're hitting stop and going to their Paramount Plus accounts, signing up for the Showtime and saying, "Is this accurate?" Like, hell, I could be a spokesperson for Paramount Plus.
To be fair, there's a lot of other really excellent programming on there too.
Right. Including Tulsa King, back to Stallone, among many other programs.
And by the way, on the Stallone front, I do have to say, I know it was reviled as one of the worst reviewed movies ever, I think, but I loved Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
Me too.
I mean, come on, he did it. That's one he just committed and did it, and you have to love that. I think that was the one that Arnold pretended to be interested in.
Yes.
I was just allegedly to bait Stallone into doing it in that weird macho. And I'm still, by the way, one of my favorite film moments ever is in Twins, which is just flat out genius. Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito as twins. Like what concept? Who comes up with that? That's just absolutely brilliant. But the point where they're going down the street and whatever movie is opening, it's Stallone's latest movie in the theater, and Schwarzenegger looks at the poster and just stops and just looks at his arms and then just laughs and walks away. I love that. That they're just same thing in breaking the fourth wall, dissing each other.
The Schwarzenegger Presidential Library.
Yeah, exactly. You have to love that. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure there couldn't have been any real animosity between the two. They're just, two dudes in the same space having fun. And I love when that happens, that they could just, they could just have fun with it. And then again, the testament time, some absolutely great movies. And yeah, there were some clunkers, but hey, it was fun. You know what? They're fun movies.
Right.
Although maybe was it the rodeo or the truck driving movie, the Stallone one? I can't remember the name of it now. That might have
the one with the arm wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah,
it had its moments. It was great. But you know what? All fun aside, speaking of film, it's not horror, obviously, but going back to, you got to give Stallone every bit of credit in the world for Rocky. And for holding on to write, they come up with that, and such a, not just the franchise. And yes, the franchise became very B and fun. I still love almost all the movies, and it's still ongoing with the Creed. And I think that there's a new series based on that now, but like just an iconic character, but that performance, like playing against any tough guy type, just like if anybody hasn't, I don't know how anyone could not have seen Rocky by now. But talk about OG, old school, great filmmaking, great characters and all that. And someone who made himself, who held on, created that character, performed it, held on, and just became an icon. There could not be more more props or whatever you say to somebody for doing that, and well deserved of all the riches that come with that. And same thing, Schwarzenegger, making himself. Who would have thought, if you've ever watched, Hercules Goes Bananas or whatever they call it these days, that guy would become the biggest star in Hollywood? That like you would, and you show that to aliens, you show that to film scholars or anyone at the time, you would laugh yourself out of the chair. And again, earned it. So many great performances, iconic characters, and it doesn't matter if he's got an accent. He worked that in and made it happen and made it all real. It's just like wow. Wow.
Exactly.
Well deserved on every front.
Exactly. And Schwarzenegger on both Commando and Predator did a lot of his own stunts. And it was, I believe, on Commando, he was actually injured a couple of times where they had to postpone production more towards the shootout, the famous shootout at the climax where he's getting his daughter from Vernon Wells. And then on Predator, I just found this out also, which blows my mind even more, of how crazy Schwarzenegger must have been to be like, if to get to be that dedicated to the film to get the scene in. And this goes to show even more why, if you have not seen Predator yet in your adulthood as a male, you've been miseducated. And that's because the scene where like after all his teammates get killed and the Predator's going after him and he's running through the jungle and he like slides down the hillside and falls off like the cliff. I found out that the first shot was actually the stuntman who injured himself in the fall. Like he broke a
Wow.
leg or something, and they didn't have enough time, with schedule and shooting to get, another double. So Schwarzenegger, they actually reshot it, and the scene where you see that the person, that you would think was the stuntman, fallen, from how high,
Yeah,
down
that's a huge.
into that is actually Schwarzenegger.
Wow. Wow.
So that really like puts a whole another like, up and then also Conan,
Yeah, there's so many stories from
you know,
Conan of them just
you
getting
know,
put through the ringer,
right. I mean,
and
actually learning swordsmanship, samurai stuff, how to wield the weapon, to make it realistic and what would Conan, you know, and on that subject with Commando, Conan, Predator, I think it's a great time to just throw in that I guess Fox recently announced that they apparently have King Conan,
I
Commando 2, and
I didn't see Commando 2. Wow.
a possible new Predator script for Schwarzenegger to return to, and
Wow.
Christopher McGuire, the guy who did the last few Mission Impossible movies.
Impossible movies. Yeah.
Yeah, he's being tasked to write and direct new the King Conan, which is already
Wow.
apparently in
I just saw an announcement or something, and I thought it might have just been an internet blurb or a meme or something. So I was wondering about that, and I'm super excited. I'm going to do some research now. I'm a gigantic Robert E. Howard fan. I'm a giant Conan fan, and I wasn't a fan of the Conan movies, the original ones, when they came out as much, because I'm more of a Robert E. Howard guy, where it's, if you know Robert E. Howard, you know the character. It was the B movie 80s version. I love them as Schwarzenegger vehicles and big sword and
right,
sorcery in that respect, but to me, they never quite pulled it off. And weirdly, and they still haven't quite cracked Conan to me, although it's funny. Valhalla Rising, I said, is the best Conan movie that didn't have Conan in it ever. And I also, Marcus Nispel's, is it Pathfinder, I think is kind of again, it's not Conan, but it's, the tough guy in the genre. I was like, that's kind of a Conan movie. Like, wow, that's
right.
To me, that's closer to the actual character. But if you know your history, to be a total dork, I think it was one novel written, The Hour of the Dragon. and I've been waiting forever. And I've known there's been drafts of King Conan over and over, and I've been waiting. Like Schwarzenegger has aged into it perfectly. Where if you know the story of the Hour of the Dragon, it's basically Conan has conquered the world. He's the king of Colonia, or however you pronounce it, and he's old and he's grizzled, and all the old enemies are dead, and he's basically bored, and his bones hurt and everything. And suddenly the is it Thotham, the sorcerer, or whatever, that suddenly there's a plot against him, and he's basically, they try to assassinate. His old enemies have resurged. He goes on the run, and he's at, I think in the book, he's 70 some years old, and goes from being a king to back to where he started. He's in a loincloth with, he even has a knife. And it's like, oh, you just pissed off the wrong guy, because the wolf, the dragon, the guy, it's still in him. It's he may be, and it's kind of like the ultimate dad movie in a way, but it's that revenge thing where I may be old, I may be grizzled, I've got more scars than any 100 men, but I'm going to get every one of you, and I'm going to get it back. And it's such an iconic story. And where I always said this through the years, it's like, it's one of those that Howard really it's not a super long novel, because he was very much a short story writer and a master of short stories. And but it's almost it's a screenplay. You almost just have to convert it. And so I'm really excited for that. And I hope they pull it off. And I think finally, it's weird that, again, having said that I separate the two. I do that with a lot of films. There's the book and then there's the movie, and I appreciate them both for what they are. But I think I have a feeling the two are going to come together. And it's the pinnacle of Schwarzenegger's career too, and of fandom. I mean, I'll be there opening night cheering, even
exactly. Me too.
I have a feeling it's going to be good, because
they were already talking about, like, with effects now, how they can make like monsters and everything more with like that's with the mythology and of Conan and everything look much more. I mean, and on that note, I'm not sure if it came out or if it's still supposed to come out, but they were remaking Red Sonja, and the trailer and everything is out for it. I'm not sure if it came out already. If it did, I have to somehow track it down and watch it ASAP, because that one I always kind of considered Conan 3, even though he wasn't really Conan in it. And I remember reading and hearing that, like they actually cut it so in such a way, because his scenes were actually minimal compared to the actual film, and they cut it, to make it pretty much like be as if it was Conan 3, even though he wasn't technically Conan in the movie. But the remake, that a trailer they have, I mean, talk about one of the probably most anticipated like 80s movies that wasn't done just, and to have the right writer, right director, right production company, producers making the choices to back stuff. I mean, it looks awesome. I mean, I'm like so for this remake of Red Sonja, over like other. I think there needs to be this thing where instead of remaking popular, 80s and 90s movies, we need to remake the unpopular ones.
The unpopular ones. Give them new life and
do them better.
Give the characters another shot. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Who's I don't know who's going to play. Is there casting notices on that?
The trailer is already out. Like I said,
oh, okay.
I'm released already. You can look it up on IMDb. I mean, it's definitely. I think she's either Dutch or Swedish, German, something like that. But
I'm always 3 to 4. I'm 3 to 4 years behind on everything. Oh, what? There was John Wick 2 is out. What?
Right.
Yeah, no, not that bad.
Yeah, this I remember seeing. It was either earlier this year or maybe end of last year.
Oh wow, definitely check that out.
But that's why it might already be out. But if it is, then I got to track it down ASAP, because it looked awesome, and to obviously see Schwarzenegger come back would be great. But another Schwarzenegger remake that is just hit streaming is The Running Man.
Yes.
Now
Yep.
I had when I saw the initial trailer, I was very, very skeptical. I'm like, I didn't like the look. I didn't like how it was marketed. It just the feel of the Schwarzenegger one compared to the Glenn Powell one, at least through the trailer, I was very unimpressed. Of course, with being, Schwarzenegger, one of the most iconic Schwarzenegger remakes, I had to watch it just to give my 2 cents. Is it as bad as I think it is? Like the last two being the Conan and Total Recall flops. But I have to say I was pretty impressed. I still think the Schwarzenegger one is better, just being the original and having Schwarzenegger be Schwarzenegger going up, against gladiator-esque, opponents. But I honestly, my true opinion on the Edgar Wright remake, it's definitely much more like the book. And I honestly think it out of all the remakes, kind of come out of Schwarzenegger so far, it's the only one that stands on its own.
And I think there's room for that. I mean, movies are everything. Movies, books, music, everything is a product of its time. And even though you do throwbacks, my style is kind of a throwback OG style a little bit in my writing and sometimes I do a more modern thing in it. And filmmakers can do that too. But I think they can exist on their own. And I'd rather they remake something in a different style. Like, don't even try to redo the Schwarzenegger version. Like, why? It ain't going to have Arnie in it, and it's not going to have that same chemistry and charisma and weirdness. Go ahead and try something new and let it exist in its own space. And that's how I think every geek, as I've read, like, hey, the book isn't like the movie and blah, blah, blah. I've softened on that quite a bit. I still hate change for change's sake. But there's things that sometimes, like, wow, you actually did a really good job, or you kind of did that better than the book in some cases, or you did it. I understand why you did it differently, and it doesn't take away from probably, one of the best examples is, the Game of Thrones. Like, they had to keep going because the source material wasn't there for whatever reason. George has earned a break, I think. What a great career on top of that. Even if he never finishes the books, whatever, he's deserved it. He started so many great things, but hope that he does, actually. Just phenomenal writer, but they can stand on their own, do something different. So glad you liked it. That's on my list to catch up and watch. So
it's a fun movie. It definitely holds its own. And I do like Glenn Powell. I think he does have that Bruce Willis kind of, Rasma. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Edgar Wright. I'm just a giant Edgar Wright fan.
Yeah, he's a brilliant writer and filmmaker.
Yeah.
Absolutely, going back to Shaun of the Dead, just everything, that whole team has collaborated on with him. Baby Driver, they've been playing.
Love that. Yeah.
Phenomenal film. And I remember when that came out, I remember this looks dumb. And then it came to the movie channels. I watched it. I'm like, I, I ended up like being like, it took me a few times to get like that it's a satire, and then once I realized that it's a satire, all the lines in the movie, just like some of the stuff that gets said, it's so goofy, but like it works, and it's also lines that like it's being written from someone who really actually is a music aficionado and is trying to, show, that's him speaking through the characters.
And before I saw it, I had heard, I'm a giant Queen fan from the beginning, and not just the hits. I love all the deep cuts. But when I heard that the climax, the mano a mano, was a car clash in a parking structure set to the entire Brighton Rock.
Right.
Okay, that's next level genius. And it was so well pulled off. And like, even that promise, like, what are you talking about? So good to do that. And using that weird, musical landscapes that Brian May created in there to be part of the character and the anger and that weirdness of it. Like, I'm like, that's, again, hats off, next level filmmaking.
And I also have to say, I think that's one of John Hamm's most underrated
Oh,
Underrated roles.
wow. Yeah, he just wow, what a great performance. Everybody in it, just great
Yeah,
performances.
yeah.
So,
Jamie
and just
Foxx, of course, is great in anything he does, but
and
uh,
anytime when you do old school, just let put the pedal to the metal and do old school
right.
driving stuff. Like we did a lot of that in Taken 3, and
Hmm.
some of the top stunt people. There's been so many great stunt car movies, and you can't help but love that. And wow, they just really lit that crap up like crazy, like
Right.
huge.
And another one of my going back to music and as a big theme in B grade and car movies, that this is one of my all-time favorite cult B grade horror films, Highway to Hell.
Oh yeah. I think I watched that about 6 months ago. Whatever reason, it popped up on Tubi or somewhere or something.
Yeah,
Hadn't
yeah.
seen it in forever. So
Yeah, that was one you had to get it was only on VHS, and if you wanted it on DVD you had to like roam the horror convention circuit to see if you could get a bootleg copy, which I did, and that's a long time how I watched it. And then when I heard that they actually released it on Blu-ray restored and everything, that was one of my first immediate buys. And I love that movie so much. It's such a cool, you know, obviously Mad Max-esque like influence with a rock and roll kind of, backdrop, and especially with Lita Ford and, the other people in there, and also not to mention a hilarious cameo by Ben Stiller and his family, you know.
forgot about that. Yeah.
you know And among also I also forget that when they're in Hoffa's bar casino in there's a scene where the it's supposed to be Genghis Khan, Hitler, and Cleopatra talking, and Ben Stiller plays Genghis Khan, and Gilbert Gottfried is playing Hitler, and he's like, talking with that like Gilbert Gottfried German, accent, which just sounds like Gilbert Gottfried talking
Pretty
with a bad, you know, G- German accent, and he's like going on and on about how he's not supposed to be there. It's not him, and Ben Stiller as Genghis Khan, and I forget who played Cleopatra, but they're like, come on, get over it. It's been, you know. how,
That's
how many years,
It's
you
been a
know,
1,000 years. Yeah, two
right,
thousand years.
but and also just Christy Swanson, who I've always had a crush on from being a kid, and
Swamp
when
Shark.
right, exactly,
It all
uh,
comes back to Swamp Shark. Everything
right,
comes full
right,
circle.
and I've had the chance to meet her a few times. Wonderful person, really nice to her fans, phenomenal human being. But
Absolutely.
that's one of my favorites. And then I know you got to work with Treat Williams, one of my favorite monster movies in general from the 90s, Deep Rising.
Deep Rising. I was amending that somewhere else. I was putting that back in my list of my top 10 movies because is it deep? Is it anything? No, but it is fun and it gives Treat Williams. It's him able to just romp, and the effects are awesome and amazing and unique. And Famke is amazing, and everyone. And it's just that sense of humor that I love. Like, just what a
Right,
fun film.
right.
And I still run into people all the time that have never seen it, and then you're like, and then they watch it and they're like, what did I just see? I'm like, exactly. And
Exactly.
down to the
Is
last
is
little
is
bit.
is it an action adventure movie?
Is
Is it
it
a
comedy?
monster
Is it
movie?
horror? Is
Is
it a
it right? Is
monster
it
movie?
comedy? Like,
And
it
just down to the last thing with the trees shaking,
right,
and then
right.
now what? Like,
Exactly,
there's a
exactly.
yeah, there's
And
a
I always thought that Kong Skull Island pretty much would have been the sequel
I
to
think that was
that.
the I've read that was actually the plan. It was supposed to lead into that and didn't happen for whatever reason. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, what a great ending. And you didn't even need to wait to the middle of the credits for the weird little teaser. It's right there. You get up on the beach and now what?
Right.
Yeah, and like you said, a prince of a human being. I got to work with him twice, and it's always amazing that you're kind of a cog in the machine and interact with people and all that. But actors, celebrities, they have their lane. It's a job that they do, and we support them in everything that they do, and we interact with them quite a bit. But it's an unwritten rule that you don't get too personal with them unless they do. And then to have them remember you, like the next movie was X amount of years later, and he was like, "Wait, you were in Louisiana?" I'm like, "Yes." It was like, that was awesome to have him even remember, and because he meets 1,000 people a year and all that. So it was just an absolute treat both times to work with him. And same thing happened to me with Brendan Fraser. I did a couple of Brendan Fraser movies and back in the day, and I think I was driving to a set one morning at 3 a.m. in Hollywood, sitting at a stoplight, half numb, and I see somebody in the car next to me waving, and I look over, and it's Brendan in the next lane, and I roll down my window, and he's like, "Eric, what are you doing? Are you going to such and such movie?" And I'm like, "No, I'm going to this one." And he goes, "Oh man, I was hoping you'd be on this one. I saw you. I was driving next to you." And I'm like, "This is so random." It was so sweet. So sweet of him to have remembered, but also just another great guy that all success in the world. Like, wow, it was like, in my experience, just terrific. And he found out I was
what's his name, Stephen Summers, did Deep Rising, which I think like catapulted him to do The Mummy, which was his next follow up. In my opinion, that guy is best at doing monster movies.
Really, really, really great talent, and with the nice sense of humor too. With not outright funny, not trying to be a comedy, but that great sense of humor, and it makes it. The movies are fun to watch. That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's what a lot of people forget. You should have a fun experience. You don't necessarily have to go in, and yes, there's a place for dark psychological horror and all these deep dramas and terrible things happening in films. But at the end of the day, most of us just want to go and have fun. And he really did manage to make movies fun.
And I feel like that's also becoming a lost kind of like trope in horror, recent horror, at least mainstream recent horror. I mean, everything has to be so serious and, sometimes over the top gory, where I'd say it's more gore porn than actual, like, standard effects.
Yeah. And there's an audience for that, and people like it. But and I do appreciate some of those films. Like one of the ones I've just recently seen this last year is probably one of the darkest films ever, Possum. Matthew Holness, who created amazing Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and did this incredibly deep character study of like, it's true horror, and it's not. Don't go in thinking this is going to be a fun movie, because it's not as fun as Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is. It's the opposite. So there's absolutely a place for that, but most of the time we just want to turn something on and be entertained. But so many great films, from The Thing, that did that so very well. Carpenter did it so well. But that's the beauty of the genre. There's a place for all those different kinds of things.
Exactly. And on that note, I'm gonna give two closer questions here.
Uh-oh.
The first one, the first half of the first one may go on for a bit. So the last 2/3 questions. First one, what are some of your favorite films? That's just in general, and including upcoming projects to promote. And then the final question, this is where I get a little goofy in the Fisch Bowl. If you could be a fish, what fish would you be?
Wow, I'm going to think about that one in the back of my head for a minute. But favorite films, The Haunting, the Robert Wise Haunting, The Thing, John Carpenter mentioned. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is amazing. Phantasm, John Coscarelli screwed me up royally as a young kid seeing that. Bad Taste, Dead Alive. I got my list up here. Abominable Dr. Phibes. It's just such a weird, wild movie. Big Vincent Price fan. Aliens. Those are just so good. Little Scene, Ravenous, Antonia Bird directed.
Great movie.
Great movie that, like, a Wendigo cannibal horror film set in the Civil War era California. Like, what am I watching? Great cast, amazing and shockingly bloody. Shaun of the Dead, Evil Dead 1, 2, and 3. Although as much as I love the first two, my heart's just got to go the over top Army of Darkness. poster, but it's trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas. Like I'm just, that's me. I've got the poster's not up, but I've got it somewhere. I've got to re-put it up. American Werewolf in London, and then on the serious side, Session 9 is one of my favorite movies.
That's a good movie.
Great deep dark movie, and and some of the more modern stuff, like I said, Possum, which I don't know if it's on my favorite list, but it's definitely something I've watched 2 or 3 times, and I'm still thinking about it. So there's, it's an art horror film drama. It's very, very dark. And One Cut of the Dead. Anybody who hasn't seen it yet, you can't give it away, but just keep watching. And if you're in film or around film or have a family or get frustrated at work, whatever, or just like zombie movies or Japanese filmmaking, One Cut of the Dead is one of those. Just it's great, it's fun, it's weird, and then when you find out what's really going on, it ratchets up to sublime. And I always like to say, the first time I watched it, the very ending shot, which you probably know if you've seen it, at 3 a.m, I jumped off my couch cheering, and my cat's looking at me like, what the F's wrong with him? But it was just such a wonderful experience. And then I watched it again the next day. I've seen it so many times now. So, again, there's so many more than that, but that's a nice list. And if I was gonna, and then what fish would I be? Wow, I'm not really into sushi, so I guess great white shark is probably out. But and killer whale is technically a mammal, right?
We'll say sea-dwelling creatures slash mythical sea-dwelling creatures.
Oh, okay, the kraken.
The Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken. I'm just, why not be the big daddy king dog of everything? So, or kingfish of everything. Like, get away, great white. Get away, killer whale.
Well, I mean, what we should say? What about the Meg?
Oh, I think the Kraken would probably kick the Meg's ass, but there's something about that too. And there is something about an octopus, having 8 tentacles. There's certain sections of life where that could be super fun, and they're weird and alien and smarter than hell. But I'll go for the Kraken, because can you imagine being in the ocean where every single thing out there wants to eat you? Like, what a concept, that it's literally a moment by moment from top to bottom death struggle in the ocean. Like, that's just like terrifying. Like,
exactly.
It's kind of like, honestly, it's a metaphor for working in Hollywood. It's pretty much the same thing.
There's that. My metaphor is somewhat that. Also, the classic Liam Neeson line from episode 1: "There's always a bigger fish."
Yeah, exactly.
And just also that, like, everything in the ocean, thus the Fisch Bowl, has a purpose. Whether you get eaten by a larger thing, you still have that purpose that has a purpose to eat you. Something bigger has a purpose to eat that thing. And, but the overall thing is that everything functions together.
And to get like way existential, metaphorical, sciencey, whatever, some fancy word, the oceans are the lungs of the planet.
Yep.
So everything from algae to krill to fish, like, none of us would be here without them. So,
exactly.
And they make really cool backgrounds for movies and surfing and stuff. So, hey, there you go.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me. It was a pleasure having you on. We will definitely have to do a round 2, 3, 4, and 5, because there is so much we can talk about over not just the course of your jack of all trades career, but obviously stuff in common with film and everything in general. So again, just real pleasure. Had a blast. Thank you for reaching out, and cannot wait for round 2.
Yep, really, really happy to be here. I appreciate being on, and I'll send you a couple of short stories that I wrote based on our conversation. I think you'll get a kick out of. So
awesome.
One's kind of a Lovecraft, the other's an homage to horror films. I think you'll enjoy. You'll see why when I send them. I think you'll get the gist of it. So
very cool, very cool. I'm excited.
All right.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your weekend. Hopefully the temperature is right in here and outside.
It's in the bowl.
Right. Awesome. Well, take care. It was a pleasure once again.
Me too. Talk to you soon.
Hey there, all my fishes in the sea. Thanks for tuning into today's episode and for being a subscriber. Your continued listenership and support means the most and helps keep the show growing to deeper and deeper depths. I want to let all my guppies in the sea know the Fisch Bowl has now officially partnered with FastCustomShirts.com, where they're now selling custom Fisch Bowl t-shirts under their podcast and website section. Every t-shirt that's purchased helps and goes a long way to keep the show growing to deeper and deeper and higher depths. I also now have custom hats, beanies, handbags, pens, mouse pads, everything to make you look like the coolest looking fish in the sea, which you can DM me directly on Instagram at thefishbowl88 or on Facebook at just the Fisch Bowl, or you can friend request me, Sam Fish, directly and get yours today. Your continued listenership and support again means the most. It's the most important fishes that flock together. We are a school of fish and we keep the unit going. Let's all keep swimming upstream.